The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I just wanted to follow up quickly on the question about busing. Do you see it as a viable way of integrating schools? Does that relate to the policy that you're going to unveil?
Well, it has been something that they've done for a long period of time. I mean, you know, there aren't that many ways you're going to get people to schools.
What?
So this is something that's been done. In some cases, it's been done with a hammer instead of a velvet glove, and, you know, that's part of it. But this has been certainly a thing that's been used over the... I think if Vice President Biden had answered the question somewhat differently, it would have been a different result, because they really did hit him hard on that one. So, but it is certainly a primary method of getting people to schools.
What? Oh, it's July, everybody. Maybe it's the heat. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe that. And you know, there was so much crazy over the weekend. Do you know that? It was the crazy. First of all, let me just tell you, White Rabbit. Okay. And let me also say that you need to watch Gabriel Sherman's book, Come to Life, on Showtime, The Loudest Voice. There's only one episode, so there's no spoiler alert, but it's about, freaky Roger Ailes, and it's just, whoa. It's better than any. I mean, I could tell you every single day that Fox News is one vowel movement away from what it does to the news. Just replace the O with a U, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is going to go a long way, I think, to exposing the fake nature of that entire cable channel. So I hope you're watching that, because they are propping up idiot Trump, who, you know, shorthand it. This is what I call him. I call him it. It thinks that busing is a mode of transportation used to transport all children to their schools. Holy crap. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe this is the man that represents us on the world stage, and it's July 4th is coming, and he wants tanks. What? He wants tanks. Listen, I hope you got good plans for the 4th of July, because, you know, Trump is going to get his way. And from here on out, our Independence Day is going to look more like a Nuremberg rally than it's going to look like, give me your tired, you're poor. I mean, this is just so unbelievable. He is literally asking to have Abrams tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles on the mall for his garish salute to America. You see, now we know why he took a quick trip to North Korea. He needed tips from Kim Jong-un about how to hold an authoritarian celebration. Oh, this was just off the hook. This whole freaking stupid, amazing thing, giving all of this, validity and credibility to a hermit nation that literally kills its people. And the people of North Korea are on methamphetamine. Do you know that? You know, if you always dreamed of a, completely homogenous society where you could do as much meth as you want, that would be North Korea. And he goes there this week and he tweets at Kim Jong-un like a girlfriend to meet him. This is such a reality TV show. Do you know? This is like when the housewives take a vacation to Provence. Okay? This is like, for those of you who don't watch, how could you not watch The Housewives? How could you not? Ah, it's so good. The clothes alone. The jewelry, the purses. Okay, so if you don't, it's like if the Brady Bunch goes to Hawaii. You understand? It's a special episode of The Trump Show where he travels to North Korea for absolutely no reason. It's a very special episode of Trump where the Donald jumps the North Korean shark. Starring Kim Jong-un as himself. What was that? What was that? It was the sickest thing. And then answering questions at the G20 about busing. Well, it's a very good method of transportation. You know, I don't know very many ways to get kids to school. I mean, all that was left out was carpooling would be better. You know what I mean? He really doesn't understand anything about our lives. He doesn't understand one damn thing about anything about our lives. Not one thing. I mean, this is just so amazing. You know, and now, he's going to have Air Force One do a flyover for the 4th of July. I mean, you know, you better visit the Capitol soon, because when Donald Trump dies, I promise you, he's going to have himself, entombed in a glass mausoleum on display. Like Stalin. North Korea is the most Stalinist place in the world left on this planet. It is such a throwback to the USSR. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. And he stands there and he walks into North Korea with, Kim Jong-un. And you know who he took with him? Speaking of, one vowel movement away from what it does to he took Tucker Carlson. Who does that? Who does that? Who goes to a freaking hermit nation and take the most racist freak on the TV and use him to get your foreign, advice, to get your foreign policy? I mean, it's just the sickest thing. I mean, I don't know that. And between him, with the kids, oh, what was that? I mean, you had this hugely inappropriate appearance by the children of Donald Trump on the world stage. I mean, he, on the one hand, she's a senior advisor to the president of the United States. On the other hand, he's his beautiful daughter. Which is it? You can't have both. Either people are going to take her seriously, or they're going to look at her like, every other news model, every other, crony of yours. It was so off the hook this weekend. And then he was also asked about the end of Western liberalism, which means European and American democracy. Okay, that is the term. And Vladimir Putin gave an interview to the Financial Times, right? And in the Financial Times, Vladimir Putin said that it's the end of Western liberalism, meaning it's the end of democracy, and democracy is too. So they asked Donald Trump, why do you agree with this guy when he says it's the end of Western democracy? And it's because Donald Trump did not understand the question. You hear me? He doesn't understand that liberal democracy is the term that, freaking autocrats use for democracies of the West.
His comments to the Financial Times right before arriving here was that Western-style liberalism is obsolete. I know you probably haven't read the interview.
Well, again, he may feel that way. I mean, he sees what's going on, and I guess if you look at what's happening in Los Angeles, where it's so sad to look, and what's happening in San Francisco and a couple of other cities, which are run by an extraordinary group of liberal people. I don't know what they're thinking, but he does see things that are happening in the United States that
my God.
Would probably preclude him from saying how wonderful it is. At the same time, he congratulated me, as every other leader of every country did, for what we've done economically.
Shut up. Just shut up. I mean, I am so embarrassed. I am mortified. I really am. This is President Look at Me, everybody. President Look at Me, everybody could not stand not being the focus of attention. So he devised a very special episode of The Trump Show where he traveled to North Korea and met this crazy person who literally killed Otto Warmbier and sent him back in a death spiral of a coma. I mean, and then he told the Saudis, he was sitting with the Saudis, and he said that they're doing a great job. These are people who dismembered Jamal Khashoggi. This is just such a freak show of completely bad ideas, so he can get all the attention. I swear to God, it was because the Democratic debates were so freaking fine. They were so good. Fresh ideas. Bold ideas, good ideas, ideas that will make America again. And he can't stand it. He cannot stand it. So he needs to have some sort of an authoritarian display with tanks on the street. I have one word for you. Swatches. He's looking at swatches. Oh my God.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I just want to say that this is my honor. I didn't really expect it. We were in Japan for the G20. We came over and I said, hey, I'm over here. I want to call Chairman Kim.
And
we got to meet, and stepping across that line was a great honor. A lot of progress has been made.
No problem.
A lot of friendships have been made, and this has been in particular a great friendship. So I just want to thank you. That was very quick notice, and I want to thank you.
Oh my God! Why do people support this man? Okay, so the goal for North Korea, remember the first summit was in Singapore, right? And the Singapore summit was for complete and total denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, right? And then he walked out of the Vietnam summit and he was like all peeved. And then, Kim wrote him a beautiful letter. Now he's tweeting at him like he's his summer girlfriend. You know, I'll see you in September. Come meet me at the DMZ. I'll walk into North Korea with you. And I'm going to bring Tucker Carlson. You know, you like him. You see him on the TV. And oh my God. Why? Nothing has happened. North Korea is still enriching uranium. It's got all of its nuclear weapons, all of them. There was one site that was damaged by an earthquake that Kim offered to shut down in exchange for a relief from the sanctions. And, Donald Trump is such a lunatic that he thinks busing is a method of transportation that kids use to get to school. I mean, it's just so sick and weird and twisted, and I'm so unhappy about him. And he's going to ruin the 4th of July. He wants tanks. It's just very strange. Why would he? And he lied. Oh, God, of course he did. He lied. Listen to this.
President Obama wanted to meet, and Chairman Kim would not meet him. The Obama administration was begging for a meeting. They were begging for meetings constantly.
Oh my God.
And Chairman Kim would not meet with him.
Oh my God.
And for some reason we have a certain chemistry or whatever.
He has chemistry. He has chemistry with every autocrat on this planet. He chooses to realign us with the human rights abusers of this century, the most massive human rights abusers he can find on this planet. He actually, wants to be their girlfriend. It's just so twisted and so un-American what he's doing. Now, Obama would never... do you remember when Obama said that he would meet with anybody? Anybody on the planet? Anybody at all? Our friends, our enemies? He would meet with anybody? And Fox News? Oh my God, they trashed him. Oh, what's wrong with Barack Obama? No preconditions. Why, he's a traitor. He's a secret Muslim. That's why he'll meet with Saudi Arabia. It was the sickest, and now that Trump is doing it, he's like, he needs the Nobel Prize. Nobody's ever thought of this before. Except, first I want to play you James Clapper saying Obama never wanted to meet with Kim Jong-un.
I actually stepped in with Chairman Kim. I stepped into North Korea. And they say that's a very historic moment, and I think it is a historic moment and a very good moment. And
oh my God.
He asked me, would you like to do that? And I said it would be my honor, and we did, and we went over the line and turned around, and everybody was so happy. And many people, I noticed, from Korea were literally in tears, crying. This is a big thing. It's a big thing.
It's supposed to be James Clapper, but that is 7. That was 7. Anyway, let me play the mash. This is unbelievable.
I will meet not just with our friends, but with our enemies.
President Obama likes talking to dictators.
He would meet with some of these madmen without any preconditions.
I'm going to reach out to these crazy people around the world and try to get things done.
Yeah.
So I think that's a mistake.
Obama is bowing and scraping before dictators.
What is Team Obama doing establishing formal contacts with these people?
a remarkable turnaround in relations between two historic adversaries.
The commander-in-chief's leadership is now leading to a major foreign policy breakthrough.
Another stunning Donald Trump breakthrough.
President Trump scoring a big win.
It's time to celebrate a great victory when it happens.
President Trump proves the experts wrong again and scores a stunning diplomatic triumph.
How about this? The fact that all he wants is to get them back to the table as a precondition. Not, I'll give up. If you give up your nuclear weapons, then we'll talk.
Why would the administration think that this is a group they could do business with?
I have no idea.
Those who hate us will always hate us. And the hatred for America is never going to go away.
It is a definite win for the president.
And it's a huge win for this country.
It's breathtaking, it's audacious, it's bold. It will be historic. I'm juiced about it.
It'll be magnificent for the people of Korea.
You're all going to hell. You know that? You're all going to hell. And you will be in the ninth circle right next to fat and sweaty Roger Ailes. You have to watch The Loudest Voice. I've only seen the one episode because that's the only thing you can see. They didn't put it all up so you could stream it, or I would have streamed it all last night and gotten no sleep. But they only do one episode at a time. It's on Showtime. And Russell Crowe, believe it or not, is Roger Ailes. This is the sickest, most twisted alternative reality that this country has ever created for, dumb white people to watch. That's what it is. And Roger Ailes freaking knew it. He knew exactly what he was doing. He honestly didn't want thinking people to get real news. He thought there are people in this country that want America to look like what they think it is, not what it is. And there are people in this country that want to see what they think America is, not what they think it is. And he wants legs and news models to tell them that America is what they think it is, not what it is. And that's what that alternative reality is. So there you have all those crazy pundits say, well, maybe I'll just go over there and start talking to these madmen. That's exactly what happened this weekend. Donald Trump literally took Tucker Carlson to North Korea. I think he sent Bolton over to Mongolia. He sent he sent the foreign policy experts over to Mongolia, and he took Tucker Carlson, I'm not kidding, to North Korea. And Tucker Carlson then calls it in to Faux News saying, well, it's a leader's job to kill people. That's what he said. Oh, yeah, there's tape. I have it. He said, Kim struck me as, he's a hard character. There's no question about that. Maybe a little off his game. I don't think he's surrounded by people he doesn't control very often. Oh, yeah, think, Tucker? He said he wheezes like an emphysema patient. He's not a healthy guy, but basically he struck me as being self-contained, but Trump was as happy as I've ever seen him. It really felt like it was the end of the world, the end of the earth, the middle of nowhere, with kind of not many people around, standing in the middle of the street. It was very odd. And I mean, I'm right next to Kim. I could have touched him. I was that close. And then he said, it's a weird place, but you have to be honest about what it means to lead a country. It means killing people.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Yeah, I mean, there's no defending the North Korean regime, which is a monstrous regime. It's the last really Stalinist regime in the world. It's a disgusting place, obviously, and so there's no defending it. On the other hand, you've got to be honest about what it means to lead a country. It means killing people. Not on the scale that the North Koreans do, but a lot of countries commit atrocities, including a number that we're closely allied with. So, I'm not a relativist or anything, but it's important to be honest about that.
Shut up, Tucker. Just be quiet over there. I mean, it's not like atrocities or anything. I mean, you can't really defend. But on the other hand, I can defend it because it was amazing. I was just like with the president in North Korea. And he tells us that Kim Jong-un is sick. He tells us that he was breathing like an emphysema patient. I'm not saying that to be insulting, but he was breathing in a labored way, like he was out of breath, and even allowing for the historic nature of it, which I'm sure played a role in his breathlessness. But take as a non-physician was, this is a very unhealthy guy. Very unhealthy. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that was the first thing I thought. This guy is in very bad health. He also believed that Donald Trump is truly in love with Kim. He said, I think it's heartfelt. He's not an admirer of the atrocities that Kim has committed, obviously, but Trump thinks he is a competent, scrappy guy. He's a scrappy guy. Otto Warmbier's parents must be so bereft. Oh my God, their heads have got to be exploding watching this. I mean, Jamal Khashoggi's family had to be just sickened by the thought of Donald Trump sitting there and listening to Donald Trump tell this Prince Salman that he's doing a fabulous job, and every single person in Russia who is trying so hard to figure out this alternate reality that they live in, where the news, journalists are killed routinely. He actually said, look, Vladimir, you don't have the problem of fake news, do you? And he said, no, it's the same. And what was left out is, it's just that we kill the journalists. And Jamal Khashoggi is a journalist. And the Saudis killed Jamal Khashoggi. They killed journalists. And Kim kills journalists. And he kills, University of Virginia students who rip a poster off the wall. I mean, this was unbelievable. This is such a twisted universe they got going on there. I just couldn't believe this weekend. And then Trump comes back and starts talking about how he wants tanks on the street for his 4th of July so that, President, everybody look at me, can have some sort of an autocratic, a salute to him. Len in New York.
Hi, I was calling you about polls. But I'll be happy to talk to you about the Orange Monster.
Yeah.
It's anything. He doesn't care what it'll take to get him on. I looked at Politico over the weekend. The first 6 stories: Trump, 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 Trump. He really doesn't care what it is, as long as he's the headline. And I think the one who's going to beat him is going to be Elizabeth Warren.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I think Bernie's support is going to drift over towards her, and people won't feel comfortable enough to say Kamala Harris is going to go against him because of all the racism crap that people just don't want to have to deal with.
They already started, which is why I think that she is a threat to the Trump, reelect, because Junior, did you see what Junior did over the weekend?
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
What, the rotten apple did not fall far from the rotten tree, because Junior, just for those of you who don't know, was retweeting a person who said that Kamala, sorry, got to say it right. Kamala is not a real black. She's not an American black, and that she's lying to the American people when she says she's an American black woman because her blackness is a result of a Jamaican father. Okay.
Right. The hemisphere doesn't count as the Americas.
And then Chicken Crap Boy actually tweets it and deletes it so that I made a mistake. He made no mistake. This is birtherism, 2.0, and they must fear Kamala, or else why would they be going after her like that? And he defended Biden. I don't know if you saw that. He at the G20, Donald Trump was on the stage and he said, I think Kamala got too much credit, and they hit Biden too hard. You know why? He wants to run against Biden. He really wants to run against Biden.
Of course. But I think his nickname, should be Imbecilus. And, if they start hitting, talk to somebody and go, oh, you mean Pocahontas? If you want to make it a one-word thing, Imbecilus should work. for Donald. It's going to be as ugly as can be, but I think slowly but surely the support's going to drift towards her, because Bernie, her policies are so similar to Bernie, but without any of the rough edges.
Well, here's the new poll. Did you see it? Biden,
I saw it.
Biden lost 10 points after the debate. He's down to 20%. Kamala went up to 17%, so there's a 3 percentage point difference between the frontrunner, Biden, and Kamala. Warren is right behind Kamala. She's got 17. Warren's got 16. And Bernie's right there with 15. Buttigieg is at 6%, but raised almost $25 million since the debate.
I think he got hit terminally with the thing that happened in Indiana, and that was primarily because he had been there so long, and the percentage of black people on the force went down from 10 to 6% while he was there.
Well, I did see on Twitter a lot of people of color in his hometown tweeting that they support him and that he's not getting the credit that he is due for the things that he was able to accomplish there. So, it's still up in the air.
There's one other thing that I keep telling people. If he were a female, he would have a much better chance, because I think there are millions and millions of people who pay for porn who would have no trouble imagining two females in the White House are going to have a different feeling about two guys in the White House.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious. I run it by people all the time. They start picturing. You see their little, bubble in their head.
So when you think of women as leaders, you think of porn?
When you think of people living in the White House, you think of what they do when they're living in the White House.
You do.
Many people do.
And some think of the American president, and some think of it as a, hallowed ground. Isn't that interesting?
You don't want anybody working 24/7.
Wow, that's very bizarre, I have to say. That's one I've never heard. We want two women in the White House because of porn. You need to watch The Loudest Voice. You really do. Women are really not in the mood to hear that, Len. You need to take us seriously. We are leaders. We are smart. We are people to reckon with. I think college-educated women want to see a woman because it's time, not because of porn.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
She was given too much credit. He didn't do well, certainly, and maybe the facts weren't necessarily on his side. I think she was given too much credit for what she did. Wasn't that outstanding? And I think probably he was hit harder than he should have been hit.
That was Donald Trump at the G20 talking about American politics, trashing Kamala Harris and praising Joe Biden. Because he wants to run against Joe Biden. And being a pragmatist and all, I got to say, if America wakes up and realizes what I'm about to say is absolutely true, and that is this. If you have a really tough problem, if you have a really difficult problem that you need solved, ask a black woman. Ask a black woman. I've been doing it for 20 years, and they always get it. And they get it right. And they're fierce, and they are indefatigable. And I trust black women. Now, I don't know who the eventual Democratic nominee is going to be, but I can tell you that after that debate, she did so great that she's closed the gap between herself and the frontrunner Joe Biden. They're only 3 points apart. 3 points apart. Now, everybody, I think Julian Castro did himself some good. I think, obviously, Elizabeth Warren did herself some real good. Obviously, Kamala Harris was able to achieve the hardest thing to do. And that was, in 60 seconds, on a crowded stage, introduce herself to the American people, tell them what she stands for, show them what she stands against, and that she is a compassionate but pragmatic person And she was able to do that, and this scares the bejesus out of Donald Trump. You really think that Kamala Harris is going to stand on a stage and take crap from Donald Trump the way... I mean, can you imagine if, Donald Trump stalked Kamala Harris on a debate stage the way he stalked Hillary Clinton? I mean, I had a few pieces of advice for Hillary's campaign. Nobody really cared what I had to say, obviously. But the advice that I had was that if Hillary would have just looked at Donald Trump just one time in those debates and said, go F yourself, she could have won. Also, if she would have picked Bernie as her vice president. Just saying. She could have won. Matthew in St. Louis.
Hello, Randy. First-time caller. How are you?
Oh, hi.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're the social psychologist. I had a question for you since you brought up the subject and Len did about how women think, and my women whispering skills are tapped out a little bit recently. Do you think a lot of the women that did vote for Trump and then have now regretted it, do you think they'd be able to admit it or swallow their pride or whatever you want to call it and vote for a woman, or do you think it would work against them again? Then I'll take my answer off the air.
Okay, thank you. I have no earthly idea what Trump women are thinking because I never understood them to begin with. They are a very, interesting group of women in that they voted for a man who said the P word and that he can do that and that he looks in on 15-year-old girls and their mothers of 15-year-old girls that voted for him. I don't know what those women think. I will tell you, women are not a monolith. We're not all the same. Some of us are, we parent this way. Others parent that way. Some of us don't want kids. Others do. I will tell you, though, that most parents agree, this country agrees, 98% of us agree that gun violence is a ridiculous thing that we have to deal with, and it should end, and that background checks would be a logical next step. Most women agree that the right to choose is a right that all women should have. And these are and let me tell you, it's July. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the crazy laws restricting a woman's right to choose what is best for her family are being deployed in July. A lot of them started today. Some of them were blocked by courts. But many states are looking to make women vessels. They're looking to make women into handmaids and nothing more. Now, I know you heard that story about the woman in Alabama, in Pleasant Grove, Alabama. There's a woman named Marsha Jones. And Marsha Jones was 5 months pregnant and got into an argument with another woman at a dollar store in Pleasant Grove, Alabama. The police, Marsha Jones was then in this, argument, was then shot. She was shot with a handgun in the belly, and she lost the 5-month-old fetus. So the police first arrested the woman who shot Marsha Jones. And when a grand jury wouldn't convict or wouldn't indict the woman who shot a pregnant woman in the belly because they said, stand your ground and all that, and she had a right to defend herself and blah, blah, blah. So the grand jury would not indict the woman who shot Marsha Jones in the belly. So they turned around and they indicted Marsha Jones, saying that Marsha Jones should not have put herself in a position to have been shot, and that the only damaged person in the entire story is the fetus, and that Marsha Jones is just a vessel. She is a handmaid, an incubator, and the right of the fetus trumps the right of the incubator. And Marsha Jones is going to be charged with manslaughter. This is what happens when a fetus is treated as a person in the justice system, and the woman is simply a handmaid, is simply a vessel, is simply a petri dish, is simply an incubator. This is what they said, okay? In the state of Alabama, an unborn baby has the same rights as a living child. Prison time would be appropriate. You have to go by the law. Said Forrest Brown, 64, retired musician. Forrest. The notion that the law should treat a fetus like a person is widely held in Alabama. Lawmakers passed the most restrictive anti-abortion bill in the country in May, banning abortions at any stage of pregnancy, even in cases of rape and incest. Alabama voters approved a ballot measure that amended the state's constitution to recognize, quote, the sanctity of unborn life and the rights of unborn children over the right of the mother. Now, here's the dirty little secret, the really sick part of this story. Marsha Jones, who's being charged with manslaughter, has a 6-year-old. And the 6-year-old is going to lose his mother to the justice system because she is viewed in Alabama as an incubator. And now they're saying women in Alabama are not allowed, check this out, to play risky sports while pregnant. They will not be allowed to drink wine while pregnant. They will not be allowed to smoke while pregnant. They will not be allowed to do anything that any male jury in Alabama thinks would risk the life of the fetus. So you ask me if women will vote for a woman? I don't know what Trump women think. I have no earthly idea because they, in Alabama, there was a good bunch of women that voted for the child molester, Roy Moore. He's running again for the Senate. There's a good bunch of women that knew Donald Trump was a rapist. They knew Donald Trump was somebody that grabs women inappropriately, that stuffs his tongue down their throat. They know that he puts his hand under their dress on an airplane and, oh my God. They know he brags about it, and they know that he's got some unholy feeling about his own daughter. And still, they voted for him. They know that he inspects 15-year-old girls at the Miss Universe pageant. They know he cheats on his wives. They know that he's got 5 kids and, 3 baby mamas. They know all of it. They know he's a failure. They know he's a fraud. They know he's a demagogue. They know all of it, and yet they'll still vote for him. I don't know. I don't know what it is with them. I really don't understand. But just remember, all women are not the same, just like all men are not the same. All white people are not the same. All black people are not the same. All Native Americans are not the same. Everybody is an individual, and this is the kind of country I would like to have, where people are appreciated for being independent thinkers and not really give much thought to the people who cave into peer pressure to the point where a woman is nothing more than an incubator, and some women agree with that. Very sad, very sick, but here you have a mother of a 6-year-old facing manslaughter charges because she was shot in the stomach.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
We came today and we saw that the system is still broken and that people's human rights are still being abused. We remain very concerned about the conditions in which people are being kept. We had a chance to visit with about 15 or 20 mothers, some of whom had been at that Border Patrol station for over 50 days. Some had been separated from their kids. In fact, one of the women said that she was told by an agent to drink water out of the toilet. These are the conditions that have been created by the Trump administration. I would also like to very quickly, before I turn it over, speak to the Facebook page that was discovered by ProPublica today. That was a vulgar, disgusting, and vile page. That shows, unfortunately, that there are many within CBP who become desensitized to the point of being dangerous to the migrants in their care.
What we saw today was unconscionable. No child should ever be separated from their parent.
I learned a long time ago that when change happens, it's either because people see the light or they feel the fire. Today we are lifting up these stories in the hopes that you will see the light. And if you don't, we will bring the fire.
Good for you. Ayanna Pressley was amazing. Everybody that had visited one of these internment camps, detention centers, concentration camps, whatever you want to, call them, has told you that what's going on there is unconscionable, is grotesque, and is a complete perversion of our system of democracy, our system of justice. That there is very little to do with resources being the problem, and there is everything to do with racism and misogyny being the problem. There was a Border Patrol agent who decided that they would sit down and talk. We had the Inspector General's report, and this is from Trump's own Department of Homeland Security, and that Inspector General report was damning. It was completely off the hook. It talked about being on the brink. The overcrowding is insane. The people that are in there don't have a place to lie down. When we learned about torture in places like Abu Ghraib, when we learned about torture in places like Gitmo, we learned one of the methods of torture was to keep people standing all night long with the lights on, right? And that they could not lay down. They could not Well, this is happening in these detention centers, and there's photographic evidence that is so. There is photographic evidence that people are laying on top of each other, that people are forced to stand for days, if not weeks and months at a time, because there is no place to lay down. There's evidence that there's one shower for 800 people. There's evidence that cells that hold 35 are holding, hundreds of people. All of this is discoverable, as they say. All of this is in the Inspector General's report. And then you had the Democrats go into these camps, and they were told that they had to leave their telephones. They had to leave their cell phones in an office. They weren't allowed. But it's interesting because Julian Castro wore a body cam. He wore a body cam. And that's how we saw some additional photographs from Julian Castro's body cam. And now we have an interview with a CBP agent who is absolutely disgusted about the things he's seen and the Facebook page and the culture that is the Border Patrol culture, that is part of the problem that we see. And he was too much of a coward to show his face. He requested that his voice be changed, and he requested that his face be pixelated. But here he is talking about what he knows to be true.
You're taking a big risk by doing this.
Here's what America needs to know. They need to know the truth.
A Border Patrol agent who's had enough. In a CNN exclusive interview, the veteran agent, who agreed to go on camera only if their identity was concealed, expressed disgust at a closed Facebook group reportedly comprised of thousands of current and former agents. ProPublica, the first to expose the group, I'm 1015, where members shared lewd and sexist content about Latina members of Congress, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The agent telling CNN, being derogatory is part of the Border Patrol culture, even hearing a supervisor joke about dead migrants.
He was making fun of them.
Saying what?
That what difference does it make? It's just another life. He made a comment also regarding running over illegals, and I'm like, you cannot run over people.
In describing the conditions inside the El Paso detention facilities, the agent compared them to a zoo.
A zoo.
The holding facility, the cells, they are, what I will say, filthy. We have a maintenance and cleaning crew that cleaned the general area, like the hallways, but I have never seen them cleaning counters or cleaning toilets in the cells or cleaning sinks in the cell. Sometimes you go in a cell and there's trash everywhere.
There are those in leadership at Customs and Border Protection.
Yes.
They say that migrants are getting basic human rights. What do you say to leaders who are saying migrants are getting basic human rights?
What is basic human rights? Toilet paper, water from the sink, wearing the same clothing for days. I remember whenever we used to be at processing center, we used to have, especially in winter, we used to have these blankets. And 10 different aliens will use the same blanket. We will recycle them. You know, we'll put them in a bag and they wouldn't get washed.
I feel like, multiple times during our interview, you've sort of stared off in the distance and you've thought about some things that you've seen. I mean, it seems as though there are things that you might take home with you.
Every day.
Like what?
The kids.
What about the kids?
They just want hope. They want to believe in something. They want a future.
Do you support President Trump's immigration policies?
President Trump is our commander-in-chief, and unless he's unethical, illegal, or immoral, we should obey.
We should obey. Well, that did not work in Nuremberg, okay? And it's not going to work for these Border Patrol agents either. I was just obeying orders. It didn't work in Nuremberg. It ain't going to work here. This is just disgusting. And I have to tell you that there is a senior Border Patrol agent. Her name is Jen Budd. I don't know how many people read. She wrote an editorial about to her colleagues, telling them that, she knows that they're under pressure and blah, 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 and that they are trying to hang on to a stable job. But she also tells them that when they obey these orders, when they are forcing desperate families to make desperate choices and choose between their children, when they are refusing to process the asylum claims, knowing that asylum is not a crime and that crossing is not a crime, and that the very act of crossing in these conditions, risking their lives on rivers and all this stuff, is demonstrably proof of credible fear. And that you guys in Border Patrol know that. And when you take them into your custody, and when they die in your custody, it is because you are enforcing these blatantly harmful policies, and you share in the responsibility for their deaths. And she wrote this amazing letter talking to them about how if they are dumping contaminated water into the holding cells, they know they're breaking the law. And that if they put asylum seekers on a bus to be shipped to a concentration camp on a military base so that they would be hidden from the public and the press, this isn't going to end well for you. And she's warning them and telling them, you accepted a challenge. These people are now in your custody. The public has put trust in you. And you are messing up. You are committing crimes. And you will be judged.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So there was an open letter from an ex-senior border agent named Jen Budd, and she was interviewed yesterday on Aries' show on MSNBC. And she was asked by Michelle Goldberg, who's, a writer for the newspapers. And she was asked, is this a resource problem or is this pure sadism on the part of these agents? And here's what she had to say.
So I'm curious, from what you know, is it that they're operating on a shoestring and don't have the resources to deal with this influx? Or do you think it's more about kind of sadism and punishment?
You know, I would compare it to when I was an agent. We had about less than 5,000 agents for the southern border, and per year we would get an average of about 1.5 million apprehensions. Today they have roughly 19 to 20,000 agents, and this year has increased, but they are nowhere near the numbers that we used to have. So with 4 times the amount of agents, they seem to be able to do a lot less than what we had to handle back then. So they should be able to handle this. The demographics have been changing over the years, but they've had decades to deal with this situation. This is not a criminal law enforcement situation. This is a humanitarian asylum situation, and asylum is not a crime.
Interesting, isn't it? So there is Jen Budd, who was a senior Border Patrol agent back in the day when they only had 5,000, 6,000 Border Patrol agents, and they were apprehending 1.5 million people a year. Isn't that something? And they were able to do that. And now you've got 20,000 Border Patrol agents, although 9,500 of them are very busy posting on Facebook all kinds of sexist, misogynist, violent memes and, saying, oh, so what, somebody dies, who cares? And, now we have 6 dead children, where in the previous 10 years we had no dead children. And we have 1 dead 30-year-old man who we still don't know what the cause of death was in their custody. And she's saying when they only had 6,000 agents, they were able to do much more than it seems like the 20,000 strong force does with less immigrants. Isn't that special? Well, here's Jen Budd explaining to you that why she's not surprised at the sadism, at the cruelty, and at the abject, cover-up by Border Patrol for Border Patrol, because she remembers when she was at Border Patrol.
I'm not surprised at all. This has been the way the Border Patrol has been run since probably before even I was an agent. There's a reason why only 5% of agents are females, and it's not contrary to what the chief says. It's not because the work is very difficult. Women can handle it just fine. It's because a lot of them are sexually assaulted and harassed in the agency, and it starts in the academy, and it's the type of environment and the atmosphere that the Border Patrol condones and allows to continue and has for decades.
So those writings that ProPublica sources to current officials, they strike you as how typical of what you saw and experienced, both, shall we say, online or also offline in conversation and in your work?
They're very typical. I would say that if you're in the agency yourself, then it's much worse. Female agents, it's not unheard of to be raped and assaulted by their classmates in the academy like I was.
Great.
And you're not allowed to report this or else you will lose your job. You're not allowed to file a complaint or else you will lose your job, because they have to investigate and so forth. And the people that commit these atrocities and write these things or say these things, they continue on. And everybody knows about it. It's the dirty little secrets of the Border Patrol. And every time one of their agents does something like this, or somebody discovers a secret page or website or whatever, the management always says, well, this is just not like us. We're honorable. We only want the most honorable people. But yet it keeps happening over and over and over again.
And we've told you over and over again how many Border Patrol agents actually get arrested, how many Border Patrol agents actually can't take polygraph tests and pass them. There is a culture there, just like in the military, okay? There is a culture there that allows people, to abuse whoever they want, to be sadists, to rape women, to threaten immigrants, to threaten their colleagues, to threaten other Border Patrol agents of the female variety. And there will never be an investigation because, A, if you complain, you will be fired. And B, if an investigation happens, everyone will cover it up. Everyone will lie. That's Jen Budd. And she says it starts at the academy, and they teach them racial slurs to dehumanize the migrants, even though 52% of Border Patrol are Hispanic. And they know this, so in order to get them to hurt and treat people maliciously or treat people with abject disrespect or treat people, with cruelty, they start them at the academy calling derogatory names, teaching them how to address immigrants by derogatory names.
If we're trying to talk about how, like you said, how it affects how you enforce, you have to remember that 52% of the force is Latino. And a lot of people ask me, how do they get Latino people then to behave this way against people who are of their own heritage and their own culture? And it's because in the academy, they mandate and they teach the agents to use racist terms for migrants so that they see these people as other and that they are not like them. And it's not uncommon, it's very frequent for Border Patrol agents to arrest women coming across the border and then set up dates afterwards with them on the south side.
Great.
It's not uncommon for many sexual assaults to be filed against agents. And so I think definitely it does have an effect. It's condoned. And when it happens and if somebody complains, everybody groups together, specifically more the male side, and they protect each other and they push everything out. And they stay quiet, and that's how it works.
Yeah. And any woman who's ever served in uniform, she's telling the truth. She's explaining exactly your experience. Exactly what she's talking about. The culture. The cover-up. The crimes. Everything that happens, and there is no place to go. And we went through this with you. It's on my Twitter feed. All the stats and everything about the CBP agents, how they lose so many agents to polygraph tests because they can't pass them, because they are criminals, because they are predisposed to violence, because they are outliers in society. And then they're looking for some sort of a stable job, and they get recruited into these military, or they get recruited into the CBP, or they get recruited into ICE, and they can't pass polygraph tests because they are indeed criminals. And the question here is, should these people have a badge? Should these people have a weapon? And should they ever be near children?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Here's a little clip of a doctor who works at Assunciation House, which takes in the migrants after they get out of Border Patrol's custody and tries to administer, medical aid, but can't. Because you know what the Border Patrol also does to these children, also does to these young parents? They take all their medication, they take all their belongings away. They take their diapers away, they take whatever they've brought with them away, including medication, including inhalers, including blood pressure medicines, including insulin, whatever they need that they've brought with them. And the doctor that supposedly treats them while they're in custody refuses to keep a record of the medications that they need or the medications that they gave or what the condition. And so when they're sent over to some of these charitable places that take them in, the doctors there have no earthly idea what the situation with that person is. So here's one of the doctors, his name is Carlos Gutierrez, describing, what he has seen.
When the refugees are taken into custody and placed in the detention centers, individuals who have been on medicine, hypertension medicine, diabetes medicine, asthma medicine, they take their medicines away and they're not given back to them. So when they arrive to us, the parents tell us, hey, my child was on this, or the parent says I was on this. Well, we don't know what the heck they were on. and it's just not right. That's not the way to practice good medicine. But what makes me more upset is that because we doctors who have been willing to offer our services to enter the Border Patrol detention facilities to provide proper care to these individuals, we are not allowed, and whoever is providing the medical care to these individuals, and I really don't know who it is. Some people say they're contracted to some agency, and half the time I don't even think they get any care. However, when they are released to us at the shelter, we have no idea what has gone on in the shelter with those individuals, because their argument is that they want to respect the privacy of the refugee. And so no contact is allowed between whoever's providing medical care in the centers and us on the outside. That is piss poor medical care. That is not medical care. That's malpractice.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And more people who have been able to see things are saying things. Remember, see something, say something? Yeah, well, more people are doing that. That's why we salute former senior Border Patrol agent Jen Budd, who put her face on the TV. That's why we look at, doctors like Dr. Carlos Gutierrez over there, or we look at Dr. Garcia, or Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, who has treated patients who haven't received basic human needs in the facilities, who are putting their faces on the TV, who are testifying to what they've seen. And you know what else is really interesting? 6 to 7 weeks ago, Annunciation House, which is a big, not-for-profit charity that takes in these migrants after they're released from Border Patrol custody, after days and maybe weeks and maybe even months of neglect and of drinking out of toilets and of filth and smallpox infested blankets like we used to kill people with, right? Because that was a tactic. So he says he sees, he said 6 to 7 weeks ago they were getting between 600 and 1,000 migrants a day. And now it's about 100 a day, and sometimes it's less. And this is a quote from the person who runs Annunciation House, Ruben Garcia. He said, quote, "I keep hearing that CBP facilities are overwhelmed. We're not seeing that because they're taking in less and less people. And there is no reason to think that they are overwhelmed." Now, I will tell you, in 2014, the doctors had access to the government facilities, and the doctors said that they were always clean and they were well managed, but that CBP, Border Patrol, has told them it's not their current policy, and so that they can't get in there. These doctors who are willing to volunteer their time to take care, and most of them are pediatricians, who are willing to volunteer their time to take care of these children, they're not allowed in there this time. But they were always allowed in there prior to Trump. And Dr. Gutierrez said, I don't think they get any care. The doctors have no idea what kind of treatment they have had. The agencies that he doesn't know who the doctors are, if they're contract employees or what. He said that the lack of continuity of care is, and you heard his quote there, piss poor medical care. Dr. Blanca Garcia, she described seeing a boy about 2 months ago with a high fever who had to be hospitalized. And she said, how could anybody miss that this child was so sick? How could they not have noticed when you have so many people in custody? It's easy to miss something like that. Is that the excuse? And she said she also treated a woman who had a baby who was telling the doctor after she was released from the freezer that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't keep her child warm. And all her child had was a onesie and a plastic blanket that she was given. Now, of course, when they arrive, they have stuff for their babies. They have onesies and they have diapers and they have, clothes. But it's all taken away from them. So all she was given, all she had to work with was the onesie the baby was actually currently wearing and a plastic blanket. And the doctor that finally saw her when she was released said, despite her best efforts, her little newborn's fingers and toes were still blue. She said, I see this often. This is a basic example, a very simple case of not receiving basic human needs, access to water and warmth. This is why children should not be in detention centers. Now, of course, the facilities are calling all these doctors liars. Quote, our facilities are secured locations where the employees and contractors are thoroughly vetted before they are allowed to interact with anyone in our custody. We have U.S. Department of Homeland Security personnel and contracted medical staff. Now, you tell me, you're a doctor. You could work at a hospital, you could have private practice, you could join a group, you could do concierge medicine. Oh, no, you're going to contract with the Department of Homeland Security. You're going to contract with Border Patrol? Really? We have contracted medical staff at several locations throughout our sector who perform initial screenings and provide medical treatment when required. When required. These doctors say, let us in. Let us in. Let us treat these people. They're putting cold, wet people in refrigerated settings with 24/7 lights, overcrowding, filthy blankets, and no soap. What do you think's going to happen?
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
We ask over and over and over again. I've been interviewed by multiple news agencies, and that is my biggest beef. Let us in there. We have the doctors that are willing to go in there the way we did in 2014. Let us in there. We could, there's no one better than us to take care of these men, women, and children. We have the contacts of other specialists if we need those specialists. They don't. And to this day, we are not allowed any contact with whoever's providing the medical care over there. And that's just not, it's very upsetting. And I hope to God that this changes quickly. I understand that a judge in California made a ruling recently that will allow us physicians to go into the detention centers. And I hope that happens very soon.
This is amazing. You have so many people that are willing to do so much for all these, people who obviously need help. Okay, they would not have taken these dangerous trips. They would not have, put their lives in jeopardy if they didn't have a credible fear of being killed or having their children killed in their home countries. And you have doctors, you have, volunteer lawyers, you have, staff people at Annunciation House, you have social workers, you have case managers, you have a ton of people who are willing to volunteer or willing to show up, who are willing to do the work of taking care of these families, and they're not allowed in. Now, you have to ask yourself, if the government has nothing to hide, why is it hiding everything? If what the Border Patrol, the acting director of this, and the acting director of that, and the acting director of Homeland Security, and the acting, if first of all, if these people could get Senate confirmation, why haven't they? And two, if they knew what they were doing, and things like this would not be occurring. And three, why are they hiding everything that they're doing and then debating and Fox News sitting there calling everyone who has witnessed what's going on down there liars? Why? Why do you have to call people who are obviously of good heart, good soul, good skills, good brains, seriously committed to taking care of? Why do you have to call them the liars when you know damn well that the Border Patrol agents that you've recruited can't pass a lie detector test, that 250 of them have gone on to be arrested themselves, that with 5,000 Border Patrol agents, we were able to do 1.5 million apprehensions, and here you can't do 114,000 with 20,000 Border Patrol agents, and maybe because half of them are so busy typing on Facebook their hatred for others. It's a culture. It's a culture of cruelty and sadism. And this president loves it. He calls those people patriots. He keeps doing it. worships dictators, and calls the people who are abusing children, calls the people who are abusing women, patriots. What do you expect? The president is a rapist. What do you expect him to do? Don't expect him to do anything other than this, because this is what he's capable of and nothing more. Nothing greater. Teresa in Illinois.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
First, I want to say I love you and I love your staff. And a shout out to Roy.
Yeah, we're a great guy.
Okay, I know. I just wanted to say I've worked in healthcare as a respiratory therapist for 36 years, sharing the blankets and, the nasty conditions that are going on. They will get a disease and die. And they're just, listening to you now, it's like they're killing them slowly, cell by cell. I mean, it's worse than just like stabbing somebody where it's over and quick. I'll hang up, but I also wanted to say a shout out to my friends on Facebook on the chat. Can't get on there, guys. Hey, guys. Okay, thank you, Randy.
Okay. Natalie in North Carolina.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, I wanted to address the thing with Kamala Harris and these people saying she's not black enough and all this other stuff. I mean, back in the bad old days when we had all the slavery things going on, they had this one drop rule saying that anyone who was related to anyone from Sub-Saharan Africa or whatever, that they had one drop. So anybody black, anybody, even the whitest white, Native American, it didn't matter what race they came from, they had one drop of black blood, they were black.
Right.
So for them, so my thing is, if somebody's going to sit there and say that Kamala Harris is black enough, my thing is tell them in their face, one drop rule.
Well, here's what they're. I hear you. I get it. It's a ridiculous thing that they got going on that fake news channel. I mean, and it is completely fake. But the idea that they're going to say she's not an African American because her dad is from Jamaica. Let me tell you something. The African slaves were dropped off in the Caribbean too. And so she is very likely African, okay? And then she was born in America. So that makes her an African American. Just because they emigrated from Jamaica does not take away ancestry, okay?
Exactly.
So,
and it doesn't take away from
but their audience, Natalie, their audience is so willing to hate people based on anything, and they feed them this little morsel to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
It's sick.
Yeah. And that was going to be my point too about the Jamaicans and people from the Caribbean. They were also slaves too. So, you made my point perfectly.
Right.
But it's just ridiculous.
And the only place in the Caribbean, the only island nation that actually fought off slavery early is Haiti.
Exactly.
Right, and people, Haitians are too black. Listen, they are just racist, and there's no other word that will do.
Yes.
So.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thanks for calling me. I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good Fourth.
You too.
Don't turn on the TV. Okay. Mary in Washington.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
I have an idea, and it's way out there. But I live here, and Jay Inslee is our governor, but he's also trying to become the nominee. And I'm going to contact his campaign and see if he can get a lot of legislators and a lot of volunteers together and get some buses, and we go in there to each one of those centers, and we just force our way in and lead those people out onto those buses with volunteers ready to take those people into their homes.
Yeah, I've thought of that. I really want to do it too,
Why not? We should be calling these campaigns and say, be a hero. What are they going to do? If there are like 100 people at the door, they can't kill them.
No, they will.
They have to.
Of course they can kill us. Of course they can, and they will. Yeah, they will.
No, they can't.
They will.
We have to have some. We have to have people that aren't going to be afraid. We need to go in there, and we need to get those people out.
I know what you mean. I feel it too. But there's just there is no way that we wouldn't get shot at. I mean, these guys have guns. They do. They're armed. And they would shoot us. I mean, you look at Congress members, they won't even let them in. You know, I mean, they're wearing body cameras to try and film inside. You know, the idea that the people that are working there are enabling this, that they are literally separating the families, that they are physically doing it, taking a child from a mother, that they are terrorizing communities, that they are responsible for enforcing these policies that are killing people. You know, we have to work on them. We have to get them to sit down on the job. We have to get them to walk out. We have to get them to have a reckoning with their own conscience.
No, but
we have to get them to walk away because they are the gatekeepers, and they will kill us. They will shoot us. There's no question that they would. Donna in D.C.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
Oh, okay, so I've talked to you a million times before. I'm the travel agent.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, and I'm in D.C., and let me tell you something. First off, they're shutting down the airport for 2 hours, National Airport tomorrow.
Yeah, what's the
weather?
weather?
You know what a nightmare that is for travel agents?
I do.
You know,
but
so
what's the weather? I'm just hoping that there's this massive thunderstorm, that God looks down on this ridiculous, despotic, display and says, you know what, thunder, lightning, ground. I would love
feel bad for the good people that want to see the regular
I do
4th of
too,
July.
but you know what? Thunder, lightning, no Blue Angels, no torturing of the military, no flyovers, no nothing. Just everybody all together now, all together. Pray for a big thunder boomer over Washington, D.C. tomorrow. You know, the donors aren't going to get their hair wet. So that's the only thing I could think of.
Mary had a little man. The fall.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
You're 14 years old.
Yeah, you knew very well my age. You knew exactly, who he was hanging out with, I don't think he cared.
When Rose turned 15, she says things took a turn.
Just take your underwear off and get on top. And I said I didn't want to. And he, very forcefully kind of brought me into the table, and I just did what he told me to do. I was really scared. I didn't necessarily think that he was, going to rape me.
Did he hold you there?
Yeah.
No question in your mind, he knew you did not want that to happen.
Oh, yeah. No, he definitely, there was no way. I was like, I don't want to say I was screaming or anything of that nature, but I was terrified, and I was telling him to stop. Please stop,
And did he?
No, he did not stop. He had no intentions of stopping, and that's what he wanted. That's what he got.
When you left there, you never went back?
After that day, no, I never went back. I was terrified. I was really scared because I didn't want that to happen again.
And you left school. Did you leave the school because it was in the same neighborhood?
Yeah, it was so close.
Oh, my God. There's another girl. Her name is Jennifer Arazoz, and she is very brave, and she has now come forward to allege that Jeffrey Epstein raped her when she was 14. The Miami Herald had uncovered about 80 girls, 80. And this was a 3-time-a-day thing for Jeffrey Epstein. This was an endless supply of 14-year-olds being delivered to him in various locales. I mean, this is global. This happened all over the place. It happened in New York. It happened in New Mexico. It happened in Florida. It happened in the Virgin Islands. It happened, in Europe. I mean, this is an international ring of human trafficking of it's pedophilia is what it is. It's a rich guy buying, kids, little kids, girl kids. So you know the story pretty much. Now today, Alex Acosta decided that he was going to have a press conference today at around 2:30 Eastern time, which he did. And he took questions. And he was asked, why in the world did you let this guy plead to one count of, and the charge itself is insulting to these girls. Can I just say to you that there is no such thing as child prostitution. It doesn't exist in law or in any decent person's head. If a child is below the age of consent for sex, that child cannot prostitute him or herself. His or herself. Cannot. Somebody is pimping them. Somebody is delivering them. Somebody is working them. Somebody is managing them. Somebody is running a human trafficking sex ring for a pedophile. For a pedophile. That is what it is. And that that Acosta actually allowed. Now, I know how Acosta got the case. I know exactly the story. And I'm going to tell it to you because the story is disgusting and it's shocking. You know why? Because in this story, there were really only two people who were willing to risk their careers to defend the victims of a pedophile's sex ring. There were really only two people who were willing to risk their careers. And those two people were the Palm Beach police chief, Michael Ryder, and a detective named Joseph Reckery. Those are the only two men in Palm Beach who were willing to risk their careers. They're the ones who investigated Jeffrey Epstein in the first place. They're the ones that went through Jeffrey Epstein's garbage. They're the ones that did the entire investigation and the ones that gathered all this evidence. They're the ones that caused affidavits to be written up. They're the ones that did it. And they handed this off to the state prosecutor, who is a Democrat in good stead, in good standing. Okay, this guy is a Democrat. People here in Palm Beach know his name. The police chief and the detective handed all their evidence off to a guy named Barry Krischer, the state attorney for the state of Florida. And Barry Krischer, who is now retired and in private practice, I think he even retired from his private practice now. According to the police officers who were willing to prosecute a very rich and powerful man with friends like Prince Andrew and President Bill Clinton and W and Donald Trump and other rich guys on Palm Beach. God only, like every billionaire that lives on Palm Beach, they all knew Epstein. So what Trump told you yesterday, well, you were nobody on Palm Beach if you didn't know Jeffrey Epstein, right? Okay, so everybody knew. This was what they call an open secret, but it wasn't really a secret at all. Everyone had seen. Everyone knew. So the police chief said that it became apparent to him that the evidence that he was giving to our Democratic state attorney, Barry Krischer, was being leaked to Epstein's team of lawyers, to his legal team. And it's just so fascinating. They all came from, well, not all of them, but the lead lawyer, Lefkowitz, came from same place that Bill Barr came from, same place that Acosta came from. They all worked at Kirkland and Ellis. And this is where we're getting these dingbat judges from, too. This is where we're getting all of these people, all these dingbats that Mitch McConnell is, stacking our court system with. All Kirkland. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. So what the police chief and the detective did, they drew up probable cause affidavits, and they charged Epstein and two of his assistants, one a recruiter, with sex-related crimes. And they gave this probable cause affidavit to our state attorney, Barry Krischer. And instead of Barry Krischer filing the case, he decided he would go the grand jury route. Why? Because the grand jury is a secret thing. Now we all, thank God, we all know about grand juries now. We all know about Mueller's grand jury and can't release the testimony. It's all so secret. And a grand jury only hears what the prosecutor, in this case, the state attorney, Barry Krischer, presents to them. There's no defense attorney. There's no nothing in there. It's just the jurors and the prosecutor presenting a case. Well, Barry Krischer chose to present the grand jury with one girl. One girl testified at that grand jury. And nothing else, none of the other evidence. There were dozens and dozens of girls that the police chief in Palm Beach County, Chief Michael Ryder, and Detective Joseph Reckery had ready to testify to whoever in whatever proceeding. And Barry Krischer decided he'd go the grand jury route, keep the whole thing a secret, and introduce just one witness. And the police chief, Ryder, understood at that point that Barry Krischer was compromised by somebody much higher up than him. And the police chief alerted the FBI. When the FBI got involved, the police chief here called the FBI. And when the FBI got involved, it became a federal complaint, as it should be, because it was cross state lines anyway. And that's how the U.S. attorney got the case from the FBI. That's how Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney appointed by W and sent down to Miami, got the case. And guess what Acosta did? Acosta met with Epstein's attorneys and let them write a plea deal. They filed everything in Miami, not in Palm Beach, where the girls would have been notified. They filed everything in Miami, and the girls heard about it on the TV.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Oh my gosh, I was 14 years old. Like, what the hell do you know when you're that young?
Jennifer Arose grew up in New York with dreams of becoming a Broadway actress. She was thrilled when she was accepted to a performing arts high school in the city. And it was outside that school back in 2001, she says, a woman first approached her.
She was definitely trying to get to know me, trying to find out, where I was from, where I grew up, who I lived with.
Arose says the woman kept showing up, talking to her, sometimes offering to buy her lunch or a soda.
The first time she brought up the name Jeffrey Epstein, how did she describe him to you?
He was just a great guy. He's just saying, he's helped me. I've struggled. She was similar to me.
Did she say he could help you with your career?
That was a big part of it.
And when you think of her now, you used the phrase, you said the recruiter. You felt like she was looking for someone for him.
100%, yeah.
Arose says the recruiter brought her to Epstein's townhouse, just blocks from the school.
When you first met him, what did you think? What did he say?
Very nice. Basically saying that, he's heard a lot about me. The recruiter was talking such nice things.
Arose says she was served wine in Epstein's kitchen, and they talked. When she left, she says she was given $300 and was repeatedly invited back.
The secretary would contact me
and say,
are you free? Can you come by? Epstein would like to see you.
She became familiar with the eccentricities inside Epstein's home.
There was a lot of artwork that had insinuated nudity with women. And I remember
suggestive?
Very suggestive. We had a bathtub that was kind of opened, and there was prosthetic breasts that he could play with while he was taking a bath, I guess. It was very odd. And the painting that was literally right the massage table would be here, and this painting would be right here. And it was a very pretty naked woman, and he used to always say that I look like her.
She says after a few weeks of visits, she was escorted alone to what she says Epstein called his favorite room in the house, the massage room, and things turned physical.
In that moment, it didn't.
At that moment,
feel
yes.
strange to you.
But at the same time, I was scared too because I didn't know if he would get angry, or so I kind of just followed. I would have just my underwear on because that's how he liked it. So, and I would just get massages back, and then he would potentially later on turn over and play with himself. And he would also like when I would play with his nipples. He used to get turned on by that. And then he would finish himself off, and then that would be the end of it.
Until he raped her. I have to tell you, I want you to hear these girls, because there's an actual, it's not a human face. It is hundreds of human faces, hundreds of human girls, hundreds of human damaged girls, hundreds of girls whose lives will never be the same because they were the victim of a pedophile's sex ring at the tender age of 14 years old. I mean, this trauma, you know, if you had a 14-year-old and you went through a divorce when the kid was 14, the kid's going to go through some... Can you imagine this for the rest of their life? Can you imagine that? And then there's no justice at the end of it. There's no justice at all. Why is there no justice at all? Because Epstein was a very, very rich man. Nobody knows how he made his money. That's another part of his story that is yet to be exposed. But he's a very rich man. And that, like I said, there are only two men in this entire world who were willing to risk their careers and try to bring this pedophile to justice, and that was the police chief here in Palm Beach and his detective. And when they wrote up an affidavit, their investigation was pretty intense. Okay, they had gone through Epstein's garbage. They had, finally, after they went through his garbage and they found notes and they found, appointments, and they found that there was human trafficking going on in his house in Palm Beach, they were able to get a warrant. And when they got a warrant to go into his house, they found all the nude photos of all these girls. So, and they had witnesses. They had dozens of girls who were willing to testify, dozens. And then they handed this affidavit over to Barry Krischer, and I am telling you, Barry Krischer is a Democrat. He's still alive. He was a Democrat here. People, were like, Barry Krischer. I think he was the one that prosecuted or tried to prosecute Rush Limbaugh for the oxycodone stuff, and his maid that was going to the Denny's on Belvedere Road with a cigar box full of cash to buy oxys for Rush so he could make himself deaf, right? That's Barry Krischer. And then because, he had gone after Rush Limbaugh, it sort of bought him some street cred, as being a good Democrat. But he's the one that literally covered up. He decided, instead of filing the affidavit by the police chief, as is with all the evidence and knowing that he had witness testimony and victims' testimony, impact statements from victims, he decided the grand jury presented exactly one girl, very little evidence. And that is when the police chief called the FBI. And the FBI took the case. And so now it's a federal case. W puts Acosta, who was known to him because, this guy Acosta worked in the White House. He had many, many White House posts. This is a dude that's been around in Republican politics for a really stinking long time. So W knew who Acosta was. He knew what Acosta was capable of. He knew he came from Kirkland and Ellis. He knew that, and he put him in Miami as the U.S. attorney in Miami. Even though Fox News is telling you Obama picked the U.S. attorney, it's just not true. Okay, this all was filed in 2005, 6, and 7. And they put Acosta in Miami, and Acosta actually, called Epstein's legal team from his old law firm, his law partners, told them everything that they had. Acosta tipped him off and said, they got so much stuff on your guy. Your guy is going to he's going to go away for the rest of his life. I mean, there's dozens of girls. There's physical evidence. There's witness testimony. They went through his trash. They went through his house. There's naked pictures of these girls. There's so much evidence. What do you want to do? So they flew down and they met with Acosta in a Marriott hotel, not at the prosecutor's office, which would be normal. in Miami. No. Lefkowitz flies down to Palm Beach, where his client is, and Acosta agrees to drive 70 miles to this Marriott hotel in Palm Beach by the airport. And that's where they have a meeting. And Acosta says to the legal team for Epstein, all right, write it up. Let's do a plea deal. We can make this all go away. And they said, we want more than a plea deal. We want a non-prosecution agreement. We want a non-prosecution agreement, and we want immunity for every one of his associates. We want immunity for anybody who ever saw anything at Epstein's house. Any associate, anybody at all. And that's the way it was written up. Anybody, everybody, anybody who knew anything. And Acosta let the lawyers for the defendant, for this massive pedophile, to write the non-prosecution agreement, giving everyone immunity. There doesn't seem to be anything that they got in return, except he did register as a sex offender. But you know, Jeffrey Epstein was arriving here from France. He's allowed to travel internationally.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Well, you know, I met Secretary Acosta this first time I know when I made the deal to bring him on into the administration. I can tell you that for 2.5 years, he's been just an excellent Secretary of Labor. He's done a fantastic job. Now, part of it is our economy is so good, our unemployment numbers are at record lows. You know, so many good things are happening. But the fact is, he's been a very good Secretary of Labor. What happened 12 or 15 years ago with respect to when he was a U.S. attorney, I think in Miami. Is it Miami?
He thinks.
You know, if you go back and look at everybody else's decisions, whether it's a U.S. attorney or an assistant U.S. attorney or a judge, you go back 12 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago and look at their past decisions, I would think you'd probably find that they would wish they maybe did it a different way. I do hear that there were a lot of people involved in that decision, not just him. I can only say this from what I know, and what I do know is that he's been a great, really great Secretary of Labor.
Yeah, what Acosta's been up to, what Acosta's been doing as Secretary of Labor is deregulating workplace safety rules, deregulating, a bunch of things that, we count on as workers, overtime pay, things like that. And he, even Mick Mulvaney today in the newspaper said, well, he's been doing a good job deregulating the entire, workplace. That's what we tasked him with, and he's good at that. He's a slime ball. Now, here's what happened. After the police chief in Palm Beach realized Barry Krischer, the Democrat, was leaking all the information that the police had assembled, after an 11-month investigation here in Palm Beach, an 11-month investigation by the police in Palm Beach County, and presented a multiple count indictment to the state attorney, Barry Krischer, okay? They realized that he was leaking all the information to Epstein's legal team. And they're the ones that contacted the FBI. The FBI took the case. The case had a name. It was called Operation Leap Year. The FBI then presented Mr. Acosta with a 53-page indictment. 53-page indictment on Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein to Alex Acosta. And Alex Acosta called his friends at Kirkland and Ellis and said, oh my God, your guy is going to go away for the rest of his life. And they said, let's get out of Miami. Let's go, I'm going to meet Jeffrey or whatever they said in Palm Beach, meet me in Palm Beach. And Lefkowitz from Kirkland and Ellis, Acosta from Kirkland and Ellis, went to a Marriott hotel in Palm Beach, about 70 miles away from Acosta's office. And Acosta allowed for Lefkowitz and the legal team of Epstein to write the non-prosecution agreement. Jeffrey Epstein then pleaded to these misdemeanors. Jeffrey Epstein was, put in a private wing, an empty wing of the Palm Beach County Jail because the Palm Beach County Sheriff, Rick Bradshaw, decided that Epstein should have his own private wing in the Palm Beach County Stockade, basically a private hotel situation. He got to leave 6 days a week. He should be in Stark. Here in Florida, he should be with all the other but that's what happened. The Palm Beach County Sheriff was in on it too. And so Jeffrey Epstein said he was going to create a new company called the Florida Science Foundation. And he set up an office for this new company called the Florida Science Foundation right there on Australian Avenue, which is right in the middle of Palm Beach, not Palm Beach County where we live, but Palm Beach. Actually, he set it up in West Palm Beach so he could go over the bridge and all this stuff. And he just would disappear for hours at a time. And nobody cared. Absolutely nobody cared. And he went to the court and he asked for travel permits. And he was allowed to make weekly trips on his private jet to New York. He's allowed to go to his private island on the Virgin Islands. This is while he's on parole. He's still, now think about it. This man is a registered sex offender, which somehow Alex Acosta is declaring a great victory for him. But yet the guy is traveling he's traveling all over the world on his own private airplane. When we arrested him at Teterboro, which is a private airport in New Jersey, he was on his private plane arriving from France. What kind of sex offender gets, international travel? He got travel permits. So if somebody wants to, and I'm noticing on the Twitter that they want to make this part somehow, it was a Democrat, Barry Krischer. Yeah, it was a Democrat, Barry Krischer. It was also a Republican, Alex Acosta. They were all in on this. They all decided it would be the best thing for their careers to allow this billionaire with presidents as friends, with princes as friends, with a legal team that was like, from the biggest lobby shop in Washington, Kirkland. They all decided, from W to Barry to Alex. They all had a hand in letting Epstein go. They all did it. Everyone. The FBI handed Acosta a 58-paged indictment because Barry Krischer couldn't be trusted with this case. And the police chief knew that, and so he called the FBI. Well, the FBI did investigate. It was called Operation Leap Year. And Operation Leap Year produced a 58-page indictment handed to Alex Acosta, who then decided to meet with the lawyers for Epstein 70 miles away from his office. And then they met in a Marriott hotel. And after he allowed for Epstein's legal team to write the non-prosecution agreement and give immunity to anybody and everybody who had ever been at Epstein's sex parties or Epstein's house, where girls were servicing him 3 times a day, every day. So everyone in that house knew, everyone in that house understood what was going on in that house. Everyone from Alan Dershowitz to Prince Andrew to, you name it, everybody knew. And when he got a 58-page indictment from the FBI after the conclusion of Operation Leap Year, he let the legal team for Epstein write this immunity agreement, write this non-prosecution agreement, give Epstein travel permits from the court, everything else, okay? He should have been in federal prison for the rest of his life then. But on the morning of that meeting at the Marriott Hotel between Acosta and Epstein's lawyers, they decided they would conceal the full extent of Epstein's crimes and the number of people involved. And Epstein ended up serving 13 months under Sheriff Rick Bradshaw's auspices in a private wing. And that was it. That's what happened. No one has clean hands.
This is is The Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, for those of you not familiar, here's Alex Acosta from a couple hours ago and his dog and pony show of a press conference.
Could you go into a bit more detail about where and how you exactly negotiated this deal? Did you meet with Epstein's attorney alone at a Marriott hotel?
So, I've read this, and one of the things I find interesting is how facts become facts because they're in a newspaper as opposed to the record.
Did you meet him?
I pulled up, I found out the details of that meeting because I scratched my own head about it, and I've provided you a timeline in a letter of the negotiations that make it very clear that this was negotiated by career prosecutors. I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
The meeting that was alleged was a breakfast meeting that took place after the agreement was negotiated, not before. The agreement was signed in September. After the agreement was negotiated, one of Epstein's attorneys asked for a meeting, asked for a hearing. I was giving a speech. I was staying at a hotel. I agreed to have a brief meeting, I believe at 7 a.m. Rather than open the office, I spoke with that attorney. And then I referred that attorney to the career prosecutors. Nothing changed in that agreement. They continued to litigate the matter. They continued to appeal the matter to Washington. And nothing changed with one exception. There was an addendum that made clear that Epstein had to pay for any attorney that represented a victim in the cases against Epstein. And so, yes, I met with opposing counsel. It was a breakfast meeting because I was staying at the hotel. It was after, not before, and not part of the negotiations, but it was after the agreement had been negotiated. And that could be confirmed simply by looking at the date on the agreement and the date on the meeting.
All right, so they already negotiated a non-prosecution agreement that gave 4 accomplices named in the agreement immunity from all federal criminal charges, but even more unusual, the deal included wording that granted immunity to, quote, any potential co-conspirators who were involved in Epstein's crime. Any potential co-conspirators. He says he was, rather than open up the office in Miami at 7 o'clock in the morning, he decided that he was in Palm Beach and he would have a breakfast meeting at 7 a.m. and that we should look at his timeline. Let me tell you who looked at his timeline. Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald, who did that 3-part series, looked at his timeline. And his timeline clearly shows that he drove 70 miles to Palm Beach, to the Marriott Hotel, to meet with Lefkowitz, and that he told him there's a 53-page federal indictment from the FBI. A 53-page federal indictment. Your guy's going to end up in federal prison for the rest of his life. But on the morning of that breakfast meeting, they struck a deal to conceal all of it. And then Acosta goes back down to Miami, 70 miles away, where his office is, and decides to file the case there. The plea agreement, the non-prosecution agreement, he files it in Miami, never notifies the girls that there's an agreement, violating the Victims' Rights Act, which a federal judge has already said he did, and that the non-prosecution agreement was illegal, violated federal law. And he files it in Miami, so the girls who live here in Palm Beach, who live in trailer parks and who are working as towel girls at Mar-a-Lago, so that they would never know that there was some sort of an agreement which is required by federal law. Despite this federal law, he kept it from the victims and had the non-prosecution agreement sealed by the court until after it was approved by a judge, averting any chance that these girls or anyone else would show up in court to derail it. And the girls were sitting there thinking there was still a federal investigation going on because the police chief here said, okay, we've taken it from the state attorney and we moved it to the FBI. There's still an ongoing investigation. Hold on, girls. Just hang on. There's going to be justice for you. It will be done. And when this thing was filed and when this thing was sealed, the girls were never told. They never knew to show up in Miami in court. They never knew to show up anywhere, in any court, at any time. But you would think it would be in Palm Beach County, but it wasn't. And one of the reporters today asked him about that. They said, a federal judge ruled that you broke the law.
You've mentioned several times that you and the prosecutors in your office weren't sure that you could secure a win in this case. But the very purpose of the CVRA is to give the victims an opportunity to weigh in. And the federal judge ruled that you broke federal law by not doing so. Do you think that your thinking would have been different had you followed the law and
had you followed the law?
So first, let me point out we followed department policy. Department policy at the time made very clear, and this is in a written statement that was subsequently issued by what is called the Office of Legal Counsel, which is the chief legal arm of the Department of Justice, that these situations with non-prosecution agreements are not covered by the CVRA at the time.
Oh, my God.
Because the CVRA, according to department policy, does not attach until a case is actually brought. Now, I understand that the judge had a different view.
Yeah.
And I understand that the judge's view was that department policy did not comply with the law.
That's some lawyering, isn't it? That's some lawyering. So a federal judge found that you violated federal law by not notifying the victims under the Criminal Victims' Rights Act, which, was in place when you did this. Well, the judge had a different view. And but I love the way the reporters said, well, do you think there would have been a different result if you had followed the law? Well, the judge had a different view. The judge said I didn't follow the law, but this is like a Reagan moment, My heart tells me I didn't sell tow missiles to Iran, but the facts tell me I did. That is exactly what that was right there. So, and by the way, you know how we know that he's lying? We know that he's lying because when Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald decided to investigate this, she was just looking at human trafficking. She wasn't looking at Epstein. Okay? I mean, I can go back and show you the original clips of Julie K. Brown when she first broke this story. And they were asking her, what made you do this? Why did you look into it? What was it about, Epstein? And she said, no, it wasn't Epstein at all. I was looking at human trafficking and I kept seeing this case. I kept seeing it. And I thought, let me just see what this case is. And she started to look into it. She spent an entire year going through 10 years of court documents, lawsuits, witness depositions, FBI documents. She talked to key people involved in the investigation, most of whom had never spoken before. She got new records, including a full unredacted copy of the Palm Beach police investigation and the witness statements that were kept under seal. That's how we know he's lying. We know there was a 53-page FBI indictment. We know that. Now, Acosta decided today that he would blame it all on Barry Krischer. And I'm sorry, while Barry Krischer was probably, really filthy dirty on this one, so was Alex Acosta. This crosses every boundary you've set up in your head about R's and D's. This is not partisan. This is pedophilia.
Simply put, the Palm Beach State Attorney's Office was ready to let Epstein walk free. No jail time. Nothing.
Right.
Prosecutors in my former office found this to be completely unacceptable. And they became involved. Our office became involved.
He skipped the whole FBI investigation. You know, we became involved. No, what happened was when Krischer wouldn't prosecute, the Palm Beach police Chief Ryder, was outraged. He called the FBI. The FBI investigated, and they handed the U.S. attorney in Miami, him, a 53-page indictment, and he calls his law partners, his former law partners, because this guy was from Kirkland and Ellis, and he said, "Your guy's going." They got him. Well, let's just sit down and let's just sit down and talk about it. I mean, we can make this go away. Can't we all get along? Well, it depends what's in it for me, pal. Well, let's talk about that. Meet me at the Marriott in Palm Beach. We got something we want you to look at, and it was that non-prosecution agreement. And that was it.
Mary had a little man. The fault.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Alan Dershowitz vehemently denies the allegations brought against him by Virginia Giuffre. He says he had no idea about the extent of the allegations against Jeffrey Epstein when he took on his case back in 2008. But he says defending controversial clients is just part of the job.
Did you ever see Mr. Epstein with underage girls?
No. Oh, no. If I had ever seen Jeffrey Epstein in any inappropriate situation with an underage girl, I would have terminated my relationship and turned him in. No way.
So you're obviously surprised by the allegations.
We were shocked by the allegations, but as a criminal lawyer, being shocked by an allegation doesn't mean that I won't defend somebody.
Alan Dershowitz helped negotiate what many have criticized as a lenient plea deal for Jeffrey Epstein in 2008. Dershowitz denies the deal was a bargain, instead arguing prosecutors lacked the evidence to indict Epstein for federal sex trafficking charges.
They thought they would lose, so they
made
cut
a
this deal.
And for them, it was not a bad deal. They got him to be a registered sex offender, to pay vast amounts of money to all the women, and to get him to plead and go to jail and expose him for the world to see as a sex offender. I think the feds thought it was the best they could do.
An in-depth investigation by the Miami Herald in November uncovered police records alleging Epstein molested dozens of underage girls. One detective told the paper the evidence supporting the girls' claims was overwhelming.
Obviously, there's a lot of talk about this being a result of Mr. Epstein's wealth and power. Do you think anyone else would have gotten this sort of deal?
Oh, I think a lot of people without the power and wealth might have gotten a better deal. His prominence, his fame made it clear that the prosecution would work very hard to get the best possible deal they could. Look, wealth is a two-edged sword.
It is.
It helps you put together a very good legal team, but it also puts you in the public eye in a way that makes the prosecution work very hard.
But this deal was kept very much under the wraps.
I had nothing to do with that part of it.
But legal, ethical, you'd go back and make the same deal and you think it was all squared away.
I would try to get a better deal. The job of a criminal defense attorney is to try to get the best possible deal.
Part of the immunity deal left open the avenue for civil charges to be brought up against Mr. Epstein. Any idea how many civil cases have been brought against him, how much money has been paid out?
I wasn't involved at all in the financial aspects of it. I'm a criminal lawyer, not a civil lawyer, but from what I know, tens of millions of dollars were paid out to many, many alleged victims.
Many alleged victims. Many. There are many, but I never saw any of it. I never saw. I never knew. Now, did you ever experience a massage or anything like that at Jeffrey Epstein's house? Oh, yeah. I had a massage at Jeffrey Epstein's house. Yeah.
It's just weird. And you know, there are so many unanswered questions here. I interviewed Alan Dershowitz about this, who was representing Jeffrey Epstein, says he's still advising him. Alan Dershowitz told me he got a massage at Epstein's house, and then he clarified that it was from, this is a direct quote, an old Russian. Said he saw no one underage. I mean, what's going on? I mean, what is this?
Right.
What are we talking about?
Well, What are we talking about here? So Alan Dershowitz says he never saw Jeffrey Epstein with any never saw, although the girls are coming 3 times a day, every day, right? But he did take time to have a massage at Jeffrey Epstein's. That, of course, is Jonathan Swan from Axios, and thank God he was on Fox News because you can't play Axios. They won't let it's HBO, and I can't play any of their clips. But Jonathan Swan was on Fox News saying, so I interviewed Dershowitz, and I asked him, you never saw any underage girl? No, but did you ever get a massage at Jeffrey? Yeah, I got a massage at Jeffrey Epstein's house. Are you kidding me? No, but she was a very old Russian woman, so what? They're trafficking from Russia too? They're trafficking from all over the world, and they're bringing in, mother and daughter teams? What is that? He goes, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Now, I got to tell you that, this was a huge worldwide scandal, okay? That's what's so disgusting about this all being swept under the rug. This included Prince Andrew. It included Bill Clinton. It included Donald Trump. There is an article about how Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein had a party at Mar-a-Lago, and a guy who was representing models had told the models that were to go to Mar-a-Lago that there would be a big VIP event and they would meet all kinds of important people. But when the dozens and dozens of models, now for some reason people think models are, of age. Let me tell you something. When you're looking at like a lot of your magazines and stuff, and you're looking at these airbrush pictures of, people wearing gorgeous designer, those girls are 14 years old. Those girls are 13, 14, 15 years old. So the models were invited. And guess who was at the party? Just Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody else. Nobody else. And the guy who arranged for the models to come said, what do you mean? I can't. Everybody knows about Jeffrey Epstein. Everyone knows his reputation. I can't have underage girls going to a party with just you and Jeffrey Epstein. I can't do that. But he did it. So this was local news back in the day when this first broke that Prince Andrew was part of this, that Alan Dershowitz was part of this, okay? This is what it looked like.
I just wish to reiterate and to reaffirm the statements which have already been made on my behalf.
This is Prince Andrew.
By Buckingham Palace.
Britain's Prince Andrew speaking out for the first time today to deny accusations that he had sex with an underage girl, allegedly being kept as a sex slave. That young woman also claims she was forced to have sex with high-profile defense attorney and Miami Beach resident Alan Dershowitz, who also denies those accusations. Local 10 News investigator Bob Norman spoke with Dershowitz today.
She's an admitted prostitute. She's a serial liar.
Attorney Alan Dershowitz today lashed out at his accuser, Virginia Roberts, who swore in a new affidavit that he had sex with her while she was an underage, quote, sex slave of wealthy Palm Beach financier Jeffrey Epstein.
She's lied.
But she wasn't lying about being sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein as a minor, correct?
That is between her and Jeffrey Epstein.
Wait, Roberts, one of dozens of underage girls allegedly recruited by convicted sex offender Epstein, also released new photos, including this one she says was taken by Epstein when she was about 15. In the new affidavit, she claims Dershowitz had sex with her 6 times at Epstein's residences, as well as on his jet and private island, and swore to seeming new details regarding alleged sex with Prince Andrew at Epstein's order when she was 17. The two are photographed here in London.
I can tell you she is still a prostitute. She is selling false stories now for money about me.
Do you have any concern calling her a prostitute when she was victimized at such a young age?
Really?
By this wealthy man?
She was not victimized. She made her own decisions in life.
But at the age of 15, some would say that's a little young and that she was taken advantage of.
I'm talking about the age of 19. Look, that's between her and the federal government and the people that she claims victimized her.
Dershowitz is a longtime friend of Epstein's who represented him in the criminal underage sex case.
Could you please? I never saw a young underage woman.
Yet Epstein's former butler swore under oath that Dershowitz was at Epstein's residences at the same time underage girls were there.
Were there young women in another part of the house giving massages when I wasn't around. I have no idea of that.
Dershowitz did say he once received a massage at Epstein's mansion, but from an adult woman.
I kept my underwear on during the massage. I don't like massages particularly.
Bob Norman, Local 10 News.
Roberts' attorneys claim that Dershowitz has ducked a deposition, but Dershowitz told Bob he's willing to submit to one, but only after Roberts goes first.
So that's the story of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who lives in Australia now. She's married, and he's calling her a prostitute. She was 15 years old. Obviously, she's got photographic evidence of herself with Prince Andrew, and there are 80 girls in this one Palm Beach case. 80 girls that the Miami Herald was able to locate. 3 times a day, he's there getting a massage, but from an old Russian woman. What are we talking about?